Hello students, today we're going to be talking about comparing different sources. Specifically, what does it mean to compare nonfiction sources? How do I compare nonfiction sources? And how do I answer test questions involving multiple sources? To start things off, what does it mean to actually compare nonfiction sources? What does that mean? Well, basically, different sources basically just mean different passages. So you'll be looking at two different passages, or maybe more than two, and those will be nonfiction passages. And with those different passages, you might have agreements, you might have disagreements, but they will be talking about usually about the same topic. So you're going to be looking at basically what they're saying about that same topic. Maybe they agree, maybe they disagree, or maybe they just focus on a different element of that topic and have just a different perspective on it. But that's kind of what you'll be doing while you're reading multiple passages about a single topic. This is actually beneficial because seeing a topic from a variety of sources and perspectives can help you have a fuller interpretation of that topic. If you're only hearing from one source, you might be a little biased or something, so hearing from multiple sources is kind of a healthy practice. So being able to compare multiple sources is a good skill to learn. So great, we see that it's a good idea to look at multiple sources just to have a fuller interpretation, bigger picture of the topic that they're both talking about. But how do you actually do that? How do you compare multiple nonfiction sources when you have several passages sitting in front of you talking about one topic? How do you actually compare that? So there's a few steps that you can do to figure that out. First of all, you want to consider what medium or type of text each passage is in. So each passage might be in a different type of text, so you definitely want to consider the differences there. So you want to think of what is unique about this particular medium that you should keep in mind. For example, who is the audience of this passage versus that one, and how does that affect the way the text is presented? A good example of this would be, let's say, passage 1 you have a speech, and in passage 2 you might have a letter. Well, the speech might be used to persuade an audience, while a letter might be, especially like a personal letter, might be simply used to inform or express something to the audience. So these are some key differences, and that it kind of affects the way that it's written and the way that it's presented. So you might want to consider those kind of differences when you start reading the different passages. Secondly, you want to ask what topic do each of these passages actually have in common. So they're both going to be talking about the same kind of thing, so you want to identify what that thing that they're both talking about is. So are they both talking about war? Are they both talking about human rights? You want to just simply identify what topic they're both talking about. Once you've done that, you can move on to step 3, which is where you ask yourself, how do they both give a fuller picture of this topic? So what are they both kind of saying about the topic? Do they agree or disagree with each other? What part of the topic do each of these passages tend to focus on? And things like that. That's kind of what you want to be thinking about to follow these 3 steps to figure out how you actually compare a nonfiction source. So last of all, how do you actually answer test questions that involve multiple different sources of nonfiction, multiple passages? Well, there's a few things that you want to do so you can follow these steps. You want to understand exactly what the question is asking, first of all. Is it asking for what is in both passages? Maybe it's asking what's in neither passage, or maybe it's only asking for what's in one of the passages. So you definitely want to pay attention to the wording there, as well if it says something like not or something like that. Just pay attention to the wording so that you don't get tricked with the answers. Next, you want to just simply go through those 3 steps for how to compare nonfiction sources that we just went over, but just to reiterate, number 1 was to consider what medium or type of text each passage is in. Then you want to ask yourself, what topic do each of these passages have in common? And then you want to ask yourself, how do both of these passages give a fuller interpretation or fuller picture of that topic? So once you've gone through those steps, then you just simply try to pick the best, most evidence-backed answer. And that's it. Just know what the question's asking, go through those 3 steps, and then pick the best answer. So now that we've gone through what test-taking strategies you can use whenever you come across a question asking about 2 different nonfiction sources, Let's go ahead and put those to the test with this example test question and see if we can get through it. So we're going to assume for this test question that passage 1 is a commercial for a soda, while passage 2 is a science article on the effects of soda consumption on health. We're not actually going to read these passages for time's sake, but we're just going to pretend like we are answering this question based on those passages. So let's go through our test taking strategies. First of all, we want to make sure we know exactly what the question is asking, so let's read it. How are the main ideas of passage 1 and 2 related? So it's going to be asking how are they either similar or different. That's kind of what we're going to be looking for there. Then we can go through our 3 steps. The first one being considering the mediums itself. So the medium for passage 1 is a commercial. So we know in a commercial they're trying to sell us something, so they're trying to persuade us to buy soda. And passage 2 is a science article, so they're not really trying to sell us anything probably. They're probably just trying to explain something about soda in regards to health. So that's kind of what we see with those. And the topic that they both share in common is soda, and how they both give a fuller interpretation about soda. Well, we're seeing from passage 1 why soda is desirable. And in passage 2, we'll be seeing kind of the scientific effects of drinking soda. So that's kind of how they're both giving us a fuller picture. Those are the 3 steps that we talked about a minute ago. And then lastly, we want to pick the best answer that has the most evidence supporting it. So let's read these questions, paying special attention for any wording that might be tricky. The question again was, how are the main ideas of passages 1 and 2 related? They both seek to show the benefits of drinking soda. Passage 1 is probably doing that. Passage 2 is probably not trying to do that. They're just trying to explain the health things, which soda is probably not too healthy. Then we got B. They both show how soda is tasty but unhealthy. We probably are not being explained the unhealthiness of soda in passage 1, so that would not be right either. And then we have C. Passage 1 seeks to explain their product, while passage 2 seeks to criticize it. This one so far has been our best answer, but we will read D here in a second as well. The only thing I will say about this is that with the wording here, it might be a little bit tricky because passage 1 isn't necessarily explaining what's in their product or anything like that. They're just trying to sell it to you. And passage 2 isn't necessarily trying to criticize it, it's just trying to explain the health benefits. So that's where the wording of answer C might be a little tricky. But we'll read D here. So D, passage 1 shows why soda is desirable, while passage 2 shows its negative effects. So here we see that D would be the right answer because it's supporting what passage 1 is, which is the commercial, and passage 2 just kind of explaining the scientific effect of drinking soda on health. So that's kind of how you go through those different steps of answering this test question. And that's it for this lesson. See you next time.